Fred.
Yes.
We
Hi,
got
how
it
are you?
working. Good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm
Say
doing
hello
really well.
to
How
the
are you?
people. Good.
Hello, people.
Everyone say hello to Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you hear? Do you hear them all?
I can feel it. I can feel the love.
Give him some
Yeah.
hearts and some thumbs up so he can feel the love. How's the weather there?
It's really windy today, which is something we're not used to. It's not that cold, but the wind is just howling across my front door, so it's a little strange.
Yeah, it is
But
very windy. It was very windy here. It's worse a little more south, but I
right,
don't like
yeah.
it. It's just
It's
cold
still
here.
it's still winter, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
-2 degrees Fahrenheit here today.
Yeah.
I'm not here for it. Anyway.
No.
Yes.
But at least the days are getting longer. Spring is coming. Before we
Yes.
know it, we'll be ready to go.
I need your optimism. I'm normally more positive, but around February, I feel like Minnesotans, we just start to get in this slump where we're like, it's never gonna end.
Yeah, you start to give up. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in March, we kind of
Good.
start to rally. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the weather anymore. We're here to talk about the crowd calendar, which is
And we're here to talk
great.
about your cruise. I got to hear about how your cruise was.
Oh, yes, we will get to that. Oh my gosh. I feel like we should do a separate Facebook Live about my cruise.
We should.
Yes. And you just got off the cruise before I did, right?
Yeah, before that. Yeah, on the Dream. It was great. We had a great time.
Okay, we're going to do a separate Facebook Live about this because
let's do
this is
that.
going to be big. Okay. Thumbs up or like if you want Fred and I to do another Facebook Live about our cruises. Because it was my first one. Was it your first cruise too?
No, I've done a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a couple.
All right, let us know or like type a little comment. Okay. So if you I kind of mentioned while we were waiting for Fred that he posted a crowd calendar review update, kind of talking about how the month of February has been. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about kind of how January went because he posted an update about that too. And we kind of addressed a few things there in our last Facebook Live. So back in January, Fred, we kind of talked about the changes to the calendar. And how did those changes do?
Yeah, so that's the last time we talked when we had that Facebook Live. We had just published a big update with a bunch of sweeping changes across all 4 parks in January there. And so the results are in. Basically, we've had a month and a half of observing wait times in the parks. And it's kind of a split decision. It turns out that our predictions for the Magic Kingdom and Epcot did really well. In fact, Magic Kingdom on average was within half a point of what we predicted since New Year's. So that's really good. Anything within a point, plus or minus, we consider that a win. If it's plus or minus 2 points, that's kind of like, a tie. Anything more than that is not good. So by far, most days at the Magic Kingdom and Epcot were within 1 or 2 points. So that's pretty good. The studios, what we underpredicted a little bit. It was more like 2 points, 2.5 points on average, higher than what we predicted. And then the Animal Kingdom was off the charts. We've seen a whole bunch of level 10 days at the Animal Kingdom since January 1st. And so that's kind of what sparked this mid-month blog post discussion about it. We actually, it wasn't just me, it was my colleague Steve Bloom and Len Testa. We took a look at it from different angles and kind of, wrote the thing together. So it's interesting what's going on.
Now, just so everyone knows, when we kind of have the crowd calendar, I don't know if it's under the FAQ, but it does say that it's completely normal and we do say for the crowd calendar to fluctuate a point or two. Yeah. So if you do see that, that's completely normal, and we kind of adjust for that, or we say that right off the bat. So, if you're like, I thought it was going to be a 4 and it ended up being a 5, like that's normal. So the fact that we were within a half point, that's really good.
Yeah, on average. So some days we were bang on, some days we were 2 points off, but on average since January 1st, we were within a half a point for the Magic Kingdom, which is really good. And I think most people, really want those Magic Kingdom numbers to be accurate because it's the most popular park.
Right.
There's more to do there. There's more attractions. So it's really important for us to get the Magic Kingdom right, and we seem to be doing that well.
My other question is with Hollywood Studios. Could it have been off? Like, are you guys starting to get, I know after about a year, you kind of, you might start to get in those new attraction numbers. Could that have been why you're off? Or are you now starting to get those wait times?
Yeah, it's the Toy Story Land effect is hard to get a handle on until you've seen a full year of wait times collected.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, yeah, and even then, you know, it's kind of one look at it. I mean, all of these wait times are very seasonal, right? So,
Right.
you know, like President's Week, for example, that just passed, you kind of have to see a few President's Weeks to really know what Toy Story Land is going to look like on the next President's Week, right? So it just takes a while to kind of tweak and, you know, zone in on the models. And then speaking of the studios, we've got some news there that we're going to have to deal with. I don't know if your listeners have heard or if you've heard, but Tower of Terror is going through like a semi-refurbishment where they're going to shut down half the ride. So that has a huge impact on its ability to process guests through, you know, on a given day, and it really affects the wait times because you're going to wait double than you would normally.
Well, and normally that can take a lot of the heat with Toy Story Land, you know, Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. And I've found the last couple times I've been there, getting a fast pass for Tower of Terror has been like nothing. It's been a piece of cake. So how is that going to affect wait times?
Yeah, well, at Tower of Terror, it's going to at least double them.
Okay.
And then they have a problem is, you know, if you're a guest and Tower of Terror is on your touring plan and you get there and it's much longer wait than you were expecting, then what are you going to do? Well, you're probably going to go do something else, and that's going to increase the wait times there. I mean, it's just kind of, you know, the whole park is kind of this living entity of guests getting processed by all these attractions. And if you cut the capacity at one, it's going to have an impact on everything else. So we're in the process right now of working out those adjustments when we do our March update for the studios.
And will the touring plans accommodate for that? Will that take that into consideration when you're using your touring plans and optimizing?
Yes, it will. So we'll have new forecasts for what we expect the Tower of Terror wait times are going to be, given the fact that it's only operating at reduced capacity. And there'll also be an adjustment for other wait times, at other attractions, based on that kind of spillover effect. So yeah, you'll be able to just. The good news is all you got to do is hit optimize on your touring plan, and it'll figure it all out for you.
So Hollywood Studios, you think you guys will be changing the crowd calendar numbers for that over that time?
Right. So the first thing we have to do is update the wait time forecasts.
Yeah.
And then those wait time forecasts go into the big machine that creates the calendar numbers, which basically converts everything to a 1 to 10 scale. And so, yeah, so once this will all be done during the March update when we push pretty soon, actually. March is coming just around the corner. So look for that in the next week or so.
And it's important that Fred says wait time forecast because the crowd calendar refers to wait times, not people in the parks. And I know that gets confusing. So do you just want to quickly touch on that, Fred?
Sure, yeah. So we observe the wait times and predict the wait times, and then that's what we use to generate the crowd calendar numbers. So you might think, well, you know, what's the difference between the wait times and the number of people in the park? And most of the time it's the same, and that's why we do it. But there are many times when it isn't quite equivalent. My favorite example is the Epcot Food and Wine Festival. So if you go on Epcot Food and Wine Festival on a Saturday in the fall, World Showcase is going to be jam-packed. But the wait times at Soarin' are going to be something around average, like 80 minutes, 75 minutes.
Yep.
So there's an example where the wait times are about average, but the number of people in the park is a lot higher than average. And so it's important to know that distinction if you're, so when you're planning out using the crowd calendar, keep that in mind, that it's referring to the wait times that you're going to experience in the park.
And another thing you and I have talked about is that 1 to 10 scale, how we don't do a 1 to 11 or a 1 to 12. So a 10 out of 10 in February is going to look pretty different than a 10 out of 10 around Christmas time.
Yes, and this is a good example because this is what we've seen at the Animal Kingdom since the new year. And if anybody's read that blog article that we had there, we talked about how there's a lot of weirdness going on with the posted times at Animal Kingdom. We've seen incredible spikes in the wait time during different parts of the day. And those spikes don't seem to coordinate to any actual increase in popularity or influx of guests to the ride. Like, for example, Dinosaur, we saw these very, very short periods of time on the clock, like over a 15 or 20 minute period, when the wait time goes from like 30 up to 100 and back down to 30. That doesn't, I mean, it can't physically represent, you know, a huge influx of 8,000 people it must be something going on with the posted wait time board at the
Mm-hmm.
attraction. Maybe they had some expected mechanical problems and they wanted to, increase the wait time. There's a number of reasons and we don't really know why. But the problem is that when we go back and look at what happened the day before and all of these spikes, it really increases the average observed posted time that day. And
Mm-hmm.
so our numbers say that Animal Kingdom was a 9 or a 10. And that may not really be a good reflection of what actually was going on. Was it really? Probably not. Probably not.
Which then must frustrate, people who are using the calendar and being like, but it says it was that and it really wasn't. But if you were in the park, it probably didn't feel like, the 10 out of 10 that it was,
Well, this is a great question. This is a great question for the listeners. If you were there in the last few weeks or few months, did you happen to go to the Animal Kingdom on one of these days where these wait times were really, really big? I would bet that that the park didn't feel that crowded. Certainly didn't feel as crowded, as it would on the busier days of the year. It's funny, actually. I was looking this morning on New Year's Eve. This past New Year's Eve, the Animal Kingdom came back as a level 6 on our crowd calendar. Now, granted, if you're going for New Year's Eve, you're probably going to one of the other 3 parks that has the fireworks. But still, that gives you a sense of, how strange it is to have a whole bunch of 10s on these random days in January and February.
Right.
They're probably not really, they probably don't feel like crowd level 10s.
Right. But then how, do you as a statistician and Steve and Len kind of navigate that if you know that the posted wait times aren't accurate, but you have to, how do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's something that we haven't really had to deal with on a large scale. There are certainly, we've collected millions of wait times. So there's lots of examples where the wait time has a weird pattern to it. But one thing we've never seen is a repeated pattern on a weekly basis at a particular park where all attractions are doing this. And that's what we've seen in Animal Kingdom. It's not just Dinosaur. It's not just Expedition Everest. Kilimanjaro Safaris was the same with some really weird up and down, spikes in the pattern of wait times. It's a real problem, and it's something that we're looking at right now to see how we're going to address it on our update in March for the Animal Kingdom. So yeah, it's something to be concerned about, and I suppose it's a good message to the users too that when you see an increase in the Animal Kingdom, it's adjusting to this phenomena that we've been seeing, and again, your best course of action: just build your touring plan, click optimize, and it will work around it.
Well, and another really important thing is if you're someone who uses our Lines app, if you could, use the wait time calculator and kind of track those waits for us, that's really helpful. That's how we track those.
Those are awesome.
Huge for us. We really do use those. And that's a great way for us to kind of double check those wait times as well. I really want to get back to several people have asked, when does the Tower of Terror refurbishment begin?
I should have known you were going to ask that. What's the actual day? I'd have to check.
You know what?
To go online. You can Google it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could have done that while you were talking too, but I was really engrossed in what you were saying. I thought it was really interesting. And we do have other questions that I will get to as well. But yeah, it is interesting. If you look at the comments under this blog post, which I've linked in the comments here, people have a lot of interesting theories about what's happening at Animal Kingdom as far as
I'd love to hear them.
They're using like a computer algorithm that's kind of self-updating the wait times, and it's just really interesting. And I saw you commenting below on their theories, and I encourage you guys to take a look. I mean, it is intriguing.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, there's a few different explanations. I mean, we don't really know why this is happening. It could be, it could be a number of different reasons. I just did a quick search, and we don't actually know the date where Tower Terror is going to do this. It's going to be spring, summer.
Okay.
So, and it's going to be rotated in and out. So we don't really have a solid date. We could probably find it out. Maybe we might have to contact Disney and get a particular date. But watch the blog or our Twitter account for an actual date once we're aware of that.
Yeah, and once I find out, if I remember, or if you guys remind me on Twitter, I will post that date here in the comments. And then I always upload these to YouTube. So I will post that date on the YouTube channel too.
Perfect.
Now, the blog kind of talks about the difference between posted wait times and actual wait times. Does that also have to do with what we're dealing with Animal Kingdom? And is that relationship changing a lot because of that?
Yes, that's a good point, and this is really part of the core problem is that when you see these spikes in posted time, it can't physically relate to the actual amount of time that you're going to wait in line.
And Disney has elevated those posted wait times anyway in the past a little bit, we've noticed.
Oh yes, they always leave themselves a bit of a buffer. It's somewhere around 80% roughly. But that relationship, that ratio does change depending on the time of day, depending on the attraction you're talking about. So it's kind of a complicated relationship. But what we've seen at the Animal Kingdom is something totally new where, and we actually had people in the park that day collecting actual times for us on some of those days. And we saw incredible ranges of actual time versus posted time. We would see a posted time of like 120 minutes and somebody actually waited like 30. So
wow,
that's really, really strange, really, really strange. And it's hard to, it's hard to kind of deal with that from a statistical point of view. You kind of have to ignore those spikes that happen because they're not really based in what's really going on in the ride. So
well, and they're kind of random too.
Totally random, yeah.
Well, and you made a graph in that blog post to kind of show that, didn't you?
Yes,
and there are a few of them. Yeah. So yeah, it's very useful to look at.
Yeah, there's a few of them. Yeah, it's one thing that we've seen historically is when we see these spikes in the posted time, it often means that they're expecting something mechanical to happen to the ride and they have to temporarily stop the flow. Mm-hmm. And so they'll, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it, they'll adjust the posted wait time to something that's, much higher than it had been as a way to kind of discourage people from getting in line because they don't want to have them, they don't want them to be stuck in line for, 45 minutes while nothing's moving.
Yeah.
So it was surprising to see these wait times where we saw these spikes and then it actually didn't shut down. The wait time just was brought back down. Right. So it could be that maybe they're a little bit more sensitive now to mechanical breakdowns, or maybe, kind of preemptively, boosting the wait time up, even though it doesn't end up breaking down. That could be one explanation. We just really don't know.
Well, it remains to be seen. I guess March will bring us more data and more information.
Yeah. I mean, it's confusing for the guests, though. I mean, imagine if it's it feels like a 5-day at Animal Kingdom. Yeah. And you show up, to ride Dinosaur and it's 120 minutes. You're like, what, I know. Especially when you just did Everest and it was 30.
Yeah. It's really Dinosaur. Strange. Yeah.
Exactly. It's Dinosaur. So do you get in line? And, one thing I've heard is people are actually asking cast members, is it really 120 minutes? And you might get some information from them where they say, you know what, it's really only 30 or it's really only 45. Wow. It's worth a shot. I do that often, because that's kind of my job, but right. I'll do that often is they'll say, is it really that high? And often they'll say, no, it's just, or they're expecting it to get that high. So they're just kind of, preempting it.
It's a huge inflation though, but I would never think to ask the cast member, and you think, doing what I do, I would, but I guess I just go with the app, the Lines app, and
Yeah, true.
But we did get some information about Animal Kingdom from people who have been there recently. So I want to read a few of those, and then I want to get to some questions that you guys have asked. All right, so Amy said Flight of Passage was 225 minutes when we were there a few weeks ago, but the whole park was not feeling congested. So we would kind of expect that from Flight of Passage. Lisa didn't find Animal Kingdom too bad, but Hollywood Studios felt awful on February 10th.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Jennifer said, during our trip this past week, Animal Kingdom was so crowded that we decided to leave and go back to the resort. Now, this past week was the marathon, or the half marathon.
Yeah.
So people-wise, that would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And I know a few more people said the same thing. So I could kind of see that. Now I'm interested to see if the wait times kind of reflected that busyness.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's a big week. Yeah, the week after the President's Day Monday is usually a busy week in February.
Yeah.
And so I think we actually predicted 7s and 8s and 9s at the Animal Kingdom, and it got up to 10 almost every day. So we got closer on that. We were kind of expecting busy days there, so that's not that much of a surprise.
So that was completely accurate. And oh yeah, and she said it was before the marathon. Okay, thank you,
Right.
Jennifer, for following
Yeah.
up with that.
Well, that's good.
Let's see. Katrina said, will the March update be for Disneyland and DCA too, or just the Florida parks? And John actually asked a similar question involving Universal too, because you and I don't really talk about the other Disneyland Universal very much. So this is a good question.
Yeah, we should give some love to our Disneyland.
I know,
and
we leave them
Universal
out.
fans. Yeah, I know. Yes, there'll be updates coming for those parks as well. And the Disneyland one, well, actually, both properties have a lot of news that require updates.
Yeah.
Starting with Disneyland, of course, we've got the Galaxy's Edge coming in June.
Yep.
So that's going to be a big part of that update going there. We're actually in the process of working out what kind of an impact we think it's going to have. I mean, obviously, Galaxy's Edge is going to be jam-packed for the entire summer and probably for the next 12 months after it opens, at least, maybe 18 months. But the real question there is what's going to happen at, like, It's a Small World or, the Indiana Jones adventure.
Right.
That's where the real puzzle comes in, is trying to estimate what kind of increase we're going to see at the other attractions. And there's still a lot of unknowns. We don't really know what the admission process is going to be to get into Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
The way that Disney Corporate is talking right now, it sounds like kind of they're treating it like a park within a park. So does that mean that they're going to control the flow of people in and out? Probably, but we don't really know the details.
Do you think
separate admission? Maybe. We haven't heard word on that. That's possible.
Okay.
Certainly, I think they're going to control the flow of people in and out of there. I don't think they'll have a choice because it's going to be so popular.
Oh yeah.
So what does that mean? If you get there and it's a 6-hour wait just to get into the land, are you going to wait it out? Are you going to go ride something else? Who knows? So we're probably going to see something in the range of 15 to 25% increase relative to normal in wait times at the other attractions at Disneyland Park. That's kind of where we're at right now. Somewhere in there. It's going to depend on the the attraction, obviously. Some attractions can handle more people and not really affect the wait time because they have a large capacity, like shows and that kind of thing. Others will be impacted. The one I'm really curious about is Star Tours. Right. I'm wondering if all the Star Wars fans are going to try to hit Galaxy's Edge and it's going to be too long of a wait, and so they're going to go do Star Tours.
Right.
So I think it's going to see more than its fair share of increased wait times.
I just think that the placement of Star Tours in Hollywood Studios, it like almost works location wise, but it doesn't quite fit. So I wonder if they're going to eventually kind of fill that in over time.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps.
Or move it, I suppose. That's
possibly
always an option.
Yeah. Man, at Disneyland, if you remember, I mean, it's at opposite ends, so it's going to be it's a totally different story there. I don't know what they're going to do, but to answer the original question, yes, there's a big update coming for Disneyland that includes this increase. What we think it's going to happen for Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
And then over to Universal, we just had an announcement this weekend about the Hagrid. Yeah, the Hagrid's ride. So I actually just this weekend, posted some forecasts what we think that's going to look like. So you might be able to, I'm not sure. I think you can add those to your touring plan now if you're traveling after the opening date. And so those will be incorporated in our update as well for March for Universal. So yeah, we have updates all around the board coming on the beginning of the month.
And how accurate are our Disneyland and Universal crowd calendars compared to our Disney World one?
They're comparable. We typically get within 1 or 2 points every day. There are the Universal calendar really is connected to the Disney calendar in terms of its accuracy. If we're right at Disney World, we're usually right at Universal. If something happens that we're off, we're usually off at both. That's also because weather plays such a big impact as well. So if the weather's really bad or really good, it can impact obviously they're both in the same town. So we could see that. But yeah, you can expect the accuracy to be about the same. There are times when we miss, to be fair, parks like Islands of Adventure, there aren't a ton of attractions there. So, if 1 or 2 of them are really off, it can, really impact the crowd calendar. Same thing for Disney California Adventure. It doesn't have as many attractions as, say, Disneyland. So if one or two things are off, it can really affect everything else. But yeah, they work about the same as the Disney World calendar.
Yeah, I realized I'd never asked that question, so I thought I should bring that up.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of talked about how do you adjust your calendars when a new land opening day is announced. We kind of talked about that a little bit with Galaxy's Edge, how you're kind of preemptively forecasting that. And you did that a lot with, the new Fantasyland and Toy Story Land. We actually did a podcast about that with Toy Story Land.
Oh yeah,
which was a great episode. I should actually look for that. The podcast that's on hiatus right now. So I will look for that podcast episode and I will link that so you can kind of see how we forecast that and kind of what to expect. Sure. And Kimberly said similarly, how do you predict park crowd levels when a new ride opens, like the new Harry Potter ride at Universal? Is it kind of a similar thing?
When it's a single ride, we typically we don't include it in our crowd calendar estimation directly because it's so new. We have to see it, like I mentioned before, we like to see a full year, at least a full year of wait time collection before we really get a sense of what's happening with an attraction. And so during that year when we're waiting to see how it's going to play out, we don't include it in our basket of core attractions that we use to estimate the crowd calendar. So that's a really good point to bring up. So if you're, and also we find that if people are going to see the new thing, they're just going to see the new thing. Right. So it's going to be crowded, it's going to be popular once until the newness wears off. So you don't really need a crowd calendar so much to include that that new ride. But for the rest of the park, we focus on the calendar focuses on those other attractions, the core attractions that have existed for a while, that really are related to how the rest of the park feels. So we typically leave those new things kind of isolated until they really become part of the flow of the whole park.
And is that something that you always did? Because I know there's kind of that Pandora phenomenon with Flight of Passage, and you guys just did not expect the wait times that you continue to see to this day. So is that something that you've always done, or is that something you had to change since Pandora opened?
Yeah, Pandora is a bit of a different story. Well, anytime there's a land, like New Fantasyland was the first one that really was like that, where it was a big, multiple rides opening within a time period, huge influx of guests booking trips specifically to see the new land. So in that case, those crowds really did flow over to the other attractions. Same thing with Pandora. We didn't just see, the huge hordes of people going to Pandora. We also saw increases in the wait times at things like Everest and Kilimanjaro safaris as those guests, spilled over to the rest of the park. And actually, we now include the Pandora attractions in our crowd calendar figures. And in our March update for the studios, we're going to include Toy Story Land. So those are going to be part of the what goes into the calendar as well. So we feel like those have stabilized now to the point where we can include them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, are you guys finding this as interesting as I am? Oh my gosh, I just learned so much every time
I hope
Steve
so.
and Fred come on. I'm like absorbed in what they're saying. Leslie said, what is going on in early May? Last I checked, crowd calendars were low, but I couldn't find a room to save my life. So someone said maybe Flower and Garden. Someone said maybe a cheer competition. I also looked at the crowds just to kind of prep you, and the crowds were like between 3 and 5s.
Yeah.
So why would there be no room availabilities but low crowds? Is that when there's more like ESPN, Wide World of Sports stuff, or maybe school trips? What do you see there?
That's a great question. And this happens a lot. It used to happen a lot in the fall for when we had things like free dining, where the all the hotels would get booked up by the people wanting to take advantage of the promotion. But the total, the number of people, the actions, and the wait time that we saw in the park didn't really change. And I think this is what's happening in May as well.
Yeah.
We were actually really surprised when we started to collect all this data that there isn't really a good connection between hotel occupancy and the wait times that you see in the park. I think it's because I suspect she's talking about occupancy at Disney resorts.
Yes, I would. Yes.
Probably. Yeah.
I would
So,
assume.
yeah, the Disney resorts almost always operate at full occupancy. They're always in the high 80s to mid 90s in terms of the percentage of rooms that are occupied on a particular day. So, the fact that you can't find a room does not really say that it's going to be more crowded than normal. It's difficult to find a room at any time. The other side of it is that Disney chooses the slower times of the year to renovate or block out sections of rooms to renovate or update or give extra cleaning or whatnot. And so in those lower times of the year, there's actually fewer rooms available than other times of the year. So that's another reason why it's more difficult to get a room.
So it could be room renovations. It could be, the offers, the free dining, the room offers, which is true because I actually think during that time, because I'll be there, they do have some room offers.
Yeah. And the point about the groups is a good point as well. The cheerleading groups, the other large groups that come in, they typically set those up, Disney does, to bring them in during the slower times of the year to fill up the rooms. So all those things combine to get you this phenomena where it's hard to get a room, but actually the crowds are not too bad.
Before I ask more questions, I'm sorry for all the sniffling. I'm getting over one of the influenzas. I don't know which one I got, but sorry for all the boogers. I'm making the grossest noises right now. Which Kevin gave me a nice little nose blowing emoji, so I thought I should just address it because I was being a little loud.
We're very professional here. I love it.
I know, you get to hear all my snot sounds. Lisa said, just wanted to say thanks for all you do. Our first trip was amazing with very short wait times using our touring plans. We were always ahead of the crowds. Well, thank you for saying that, Lisa. And yeah, for the longest time, I will say I didn't use a touring plan because I had newborns. So newborns are unpredictable. So I couldn't use a touring plan. We were always leaving or stopping to nurse or feeding them, changing diapers. But the last few years I have, and I'm not just saying this because I work for TouringPlans. They're amazing. I've already started making mine for my trip with my sister-in-law in April. And you save so much time and you can change them on the app when you're in the parks. And Brian and I both have videos on how to make touring plans on the computer, on the app, how to modify them. So if you want me to link those videos, you guys just let me know in the comments, or maybe I'll just link a few anyway after this. But yes, if you haven't used a touring plan for the parks, they're very useful. They save you a lot of time and you can customize them to kind of fit your walking needs, your speed, if you want to minimize walking versus waiting, those kind of things. So I just wanted to bring that up. And let's see. Nicole said, is spring break considered a holiday? That's an interesting question.
Yes and no. I mean, it's not treated in a holiday the same way that we treat something like Thanksgiving or Easter. Well, Easter is a bad example. Certainly like Thanksgiving or, say, Christmas, because those occur the same time every year. A holiday like spring break is more like Easter, where it kind of, well, they're related, right? So school districts will take a look at where Easter falls, and they'll adjust the weeks for their spring break accordingly. We spend a lot of time collecting school schedules every year, trying to get a handle on, what districts are taking which weeks, because it has a big impact on when on the crowds that we see and trying to predict it. So you can think of it like a holiday that lasts, an entire week. However, you don't really have to think about it because you can just look at the calendar. Basically, it's all been incorporated. We track the school calendars for the top 100 districts by population in the U.S. So that covers most of the impact that you're going to see due to spring break.
Jody said, what are your thoughts on crowds the 1st of October? The crowd calendar shows light crowds, but wasn't sure how the unknown opening date of Star Wars might affect it. Well, we can most likely guess that Star Wars Land and Walt Disney World won't open till towards the end of the year. Correct?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking, yeah. December, probably.
So those crowds will probably stay low, and they usually do stay low in that early October range.
Yeah, it's going to be as good as it gets. Yeah, I mean, it's. I caution saying that the crowds are going to be light because there's really no day anymore where the crowds are,
true.
Are light. But relative to what you see throughout the year, the wait times are going to be lower in October than you would see like you did last week, for example. So.
Yeah. And I just went that time of year last year, and the crowds were consistently like 2s and 3s. I mean, I'm
Oh,
not
that's
saying they're
good.
going to be that this year, but it was really, really hot. It was like in the 90s the whole time.
That can keep the crowds away too. The locals especially.
But you guys predicted 2s and 3s, and it stayed that way. And I think it even dropped a couple weeks before the trip. So that was good too.
Yeah, it's still a good time to go. The one thing about October is make sure you navigate around the party schedule, which hasn't been made official. I think it maybe actually has. I'm not sure what we have for this fall, but you have to make sure that you keep an eye on when the parties fall to maneuver around that.
That's just always a little extra work, but I mean, I think I would rather take that over the higher crowds, and it does get a little busier the closer you get to Halloween.
That's true as well. Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Amy asked this question again, and she did ask it yesterday, so I want to get to hers.
Okay.
Hi, Fred. Thanks for all of your great work. We were in Magic Kingdom on December 20th. There was a tornado warning early in the day, and then lots of rain.
Oh, yes.
So we had the place to ourselves, and it was really an amazing park day. You marked it as a crowd level 1 after seeing the crazy empty park behaviors due to the severe weather. How can users see details/causes of such anomalies when viewing past year's data? And how do you account for these in your algorithms for predicting future crowds for that date? Thank you.
Wow, that's a great question.
It's like really in depth. That's good, Amy.
That's good. Yeah, because I don't think we have anything on our historical crowd page. So for those of you know, most people will go to the calendar and they look at dates in the future to plan out their trip. But you can actually go to any day in the past and click on it, and it'll give you a description of what we observed that particular day.
Yep.
On that description, in that example, I don't think it'll have any indication that there was severe weather. There is information about weather, but it wouldn't say, for example, that there was a tornado warning, and that's why it was a 1. That's a good point. We should think about adding notes on there for extreme cases like that.
Mm-hmm.
As to how we handle that, it's something that we have to take into account when we do our modeling. So a lot of people think that our modeling basically looks at what happened on that same day last year and puts it in for next year. And part of the modeling process includes that kind of idea, but it's not directly, just taking this and putting it in here. We do a lot more complex modeling where we look at all the different factors that go into predicting what the wait time is going to be. And so, yes, we have to identify in our database days that were extreme or different so that we don't just, put it forward. So yeah, we are aware of that, and we do take that into account. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good question, Amy. Or a good comment. Loretta, she said that there was a day on Super Bowl Sunday. This is actually where I used the historic crowd calendar. I looked at it yesterday. It was Super Bowl Sunday, which we did have listed under the historic crowd calendar. We'll have like any events, or in this case, there was also extra morning magic at Fantasyland that day. So she was let's see, I'm just going to read it. It showed me 3 out of 10 for Super Bowl Sunday, but it was crowded. 16 minutes for Small World, 75 for Peter Pan, 100 for any of the mountains. No more fast passes for the headliners. My husband said that if it was a 3 out of 10, he'd hate to think about people there at 10 out of 10. So the crowd calendar at Magic Kingdom ended up being a 6 that day.
Okay.
But there was also an extra morning magic event that morning, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. So she was just saying that she didn't find the crowd calendar accurate. What I wondered for you is, I know that this past year, Disney did kind of add more of those extra morning magic events.
That's
and I'm
true.
wondering if that's playing a role in kind of higher crowds on that day.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is another example of something that's changed that we don't have a lot of data on. Like, we have wait times going back to 2006, but we only have, we don't have nearly as many data points on days with these extra magic hour, these morning events, magic morning events, whatever they call them. So yeah, that's an issue. We don't really know what the impact of those days are. It may be that in the future, if they continue with those morning programs, that our models will catch up with increasing those wait times there. However, I suspect that particular day was probably just, unfortunately, one of those days where every once in a while we get it wrong. We underpredicted that particular day by 3 points. It may have been particularly nice weather compared to, historical on that day. Just kind of the randomness, the up and down. And it's unfortunate that she had a bad experience. Yeah. Hopefully her touring plan still worked and she was able to see as much as she could on those days. But yeah, that's too bad that it was so high on that day.
Amy, you said early morning magic just as it went into my brain that I said it wrong. So thank you for saying that. It is called early morning magic, not to be confused with extra magic hours.
Right.
Early morning magic is a paid event for those of you who don't know, where extra magic hours are free for guesting on Walt Disney World Resort Hotel property. So yes, just wanted to clear that up. Jennifer said, for my last trip to Disney World, I used TouringPlans and we had an amazing vacation. We didn't wait more than 30 minutes for anything.
Nice.
And most waits were closer to the 10 to 15 minute mark. The longest wait was for Space Mountain without a fast pass, and it still wasn't super long, coming in around 30 minutes. We saw and got to do so much more than expected. I will never do Disney without a touring plan again. Thanks for everything you do. It's greatly appreciated. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Awesome. Yeah, we love hearing things like that. And Anne-Marie loved the updates to the latest unofficial Disney Cruise Line, had 2017 and just got the 2019. Better in-depth information on the ports of call. Thank you. I actually read that recently. Erin Foster, she was a huge, she's like, I think she's like the first name on the book. She sent me a copy before my cruise, and it was so helpful. Oh my gosh. So I definitely agree with you, Anne-Marie. That is a great resource.
Oh yeah, they're great books.
Yeah, and Erin's a wonderful writer. I just love her to death. She's been on the podcast too, and
she's great.
Yeah, any blog post you read of Erin's is super in depth, and she answers all kinds of questions. Anyway, do we have any other questions to answer? I don't know. I think that's most of them. If I didn't get to any questions, I will look through them again. Otherwise, I think we're good to go. Thank you so much for joining us. We will upload this to YouTube afterwards. And thank you, Fred, for putting this together.
My pleasure. Yeah,
we're gonna do a cruise line Facebook Live soon.
Yes.
It'll be fun.
Yes, we should do that. Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.